morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the public forum by Control Union Philippines Academy. As the training arm of Control Union, CUPhil Academy has been organizing a number of public trainings, whereas today it will be our third episode of the public forum. Today, it's on an interesting topic, food safety certification. Food is obviously a fundamental requirement of all living beings. Without water and food, we cannot survive. During the ongoing pandemic, food is considered as an essential service. Therefore, it has been given the priority by the government to operate, since it's a critically important thing for our survival. With the pandemic, the way industries approach food has changed. They are being more health conscious. Also, the way we reach food has changed. Now we have more delivery services. But the demand for processed food in the international market actually increased from the onset of this pandemic. What we eat is what we are. So having a profound sense of the food choices around us is really important. In terms of nutrition or taste, these choices can be made. But most importantly, it also has to be based on how safe the food to be consumed. That is why we are going to talk about food safety today, and also how the standardization can assure food safety. We are going to also talk about the role of Control Union in food safety certification assurance. Let me introduce our resource persons today. With me, sitting next to me, it is Lourdes Tolentino, who is an experienced member of Control Union team. And she's a lead auditor for FSSC 22000 and also a lead auditor for BRC Food, BRC Storage and Distribution, and BRC Packaging Materials. And she's also a lead auditor for the program 4C, as well as a witness auditor for FSSC 22000 and brcgs. And Graciela Gozo is joining us remotely, where she is a trainee auditor and is a food technology graduate. And also, she is a master in food safety management. She has worked as a quality assurance officer for 4 years in her previous company. Genesis Donato is also joining us remotely, specifically for the technical support today. And he is acting as the certification assistant and is a food technology graduate. He has worked in several companies locally and internationally for 5 years in quality assurance. He is also a certified food safety compliance officer recognized by ANSI and DOH. And I am Sunera Wickramarachchi. I'm acting as the operations manager of Control Union Philippines. And I will be your host today, and I will moderate this session, including the question and answer session that we are going to have towards the end of today's program. So we will first discuss with our resource persons, and during our discussions, you can actively participate by putting your comment or your questions in the chat box of this Facebook Live event. And towards the end, we will try our best to answer your queries in this chat box. So let's begin our forum. So good morning, Lloyd. How are you?
Hi, Sunera. Good morning. I'd like to say good morning also to our viewers and It's a great day today. I hope we will be able to impart some knowledge that we have gained through experience and our work. And hopefully, it will be significant to those who are joining us today and would be able to help them start up their systems or improve or strengthen what they have in current now.
Okay. Ella, how are you, Ella? Yeah.
Good morning, Sonera. Hi, Sonera. And also, good morning to everyone who's watching us in our Facebook Live. Thank you for joining our public forum today. First of all, I am thankful that my family and I are safe during this time. My colleagues who are doing on-site audits are also safe. And I wish everyone here who's watching us live today, I wish you all and your families also to be safe and healthy. Yeah.
Okay. So how are you catching up with this extraordinary situation with pandemic?
Yes, during the early 2020, we had our national lockdown due to pandemic. So the first thing we did here in Control Union is we shifted to the work from home arrangements. And because the COVID-19 cases are getting higher each day. So even now, here in Laguna where I'm staying at, we just got back to GCQ because in the previous month we were at MECQ. So as you can see, things are not yet, of course, back to what it was before, but we are coping up with the situation we are right now. So during the national lockdown, we weren't able to do audits because there are travel restrictions, we were put on lockdown. So what we did during that time is we conducted risk assessments for our clients, for the certified sites, just to ensure that during this time, they will not have a certification that will expire. Yeah. And up till now, we are doing this for some clients as well.
Right. So glad.
Yeah, so when we had as what Ella has mentioned, things were really difficult during the start of last year, during the first to the second quarter of 2020. All industries were heavily affected, and that did not that included us as part of the food industry as a service provider. However, since as you have mentioned earlier, food is really vital. Therefore, everyone has to be supplied and everyone has to consume safe food. Essentially, the our job as auditors did not stop even when we had the quarantine. So we had performed risk assessments, and by the after maybe a month or two from the lockdown, we were given special permits to proceed with traveling. So we were actually moving around fairly wherever it is possible to carry out audits for our clients already.
Absolutely. Like since food is an essential thing, like we have to make sure the verification process goes on, right?
Yes.
So, like, how do you think the COVID-19 pandemic has affected the food safety in general?
All right. So let's talk first about my personal view or observation about the food industry and the business itself. I wouldn't deny that there has been a really great impact for most of us, especially in the food industry. So we have noticed like the once busy fast food restaurants are now currently there are some operations who have stopped, some convenience stores that provides food has also closed down. But to be fair also with some of the manufacturers, they are really doing their best to stay afloat within this pandemic. The movement, the restrictions of movement, the quarantines, the lockdown has really had a great impact on the availability, for example, of raw materials, accessibility of support services, and I would also say that it has also limited the movement of competent people, wherein we've had lockdowns per town or per city, and we cannot avoid that some of the workers will be living from a different town. So companies have really strategized, I would say, to make sure that everyone is still getting the job done as expected. And they revised working arrangements also. At the start, it was really hard for everyone. But as time moved on, as the days move on, as they say, it is already our normal setup now with all this pandemic right now.
So, how do you think these standards change due to this pandemic situation?
All right. So to add to that, the situation per country in terms of pandemic control is totally different, right? We've had countries, neighboring countries who are okay, their workers can move, the materials are also there. So the operation of these countries, the manufacturing of food from these countries has never stopped. Likewise, the demand for safe food has also never stopped. So the assurance, our job to make sure that the assurance of safe food remains very important. Actually, I would say it has even has a given emphasis during these times, wherein we've had reports on increase in incidents of food fraud, increased incidents of contamination due to prolonged storage. So yeah, we are still important. Our service is still important. We still need to assure consumers and the companies that their products are safe to consume.
What about the standards change? Like, how the standards change? And the government was reacting to these changes.
There were really no changes with the standards that are due to pandemic actually. However, there are also updates with the standard itself. So new versions were being developed and being implemented now. So some of this, for example, is the FSSC 22000, which we are already at version 5.1 starting last April 1. We also have updates with the brcgs storage and distribution, which is now at issue 6. And of course, the brcgs for packaging materials, which is implementing the issue 4 already. So these are updates with the standard itself, but nothing really about pandemic or the COVID-19. So we've had the national lockdown last year, last 2020. During that time, the standard requirements, the guidelines and regulations are still effective and being practiced and implemented by the certified sites. However, as the global situation or this COVID-19 progress, the scheme owners also provide provisions for certified sites and to certifying bodies also on how to move forward or to proceed with the certifications. So example for this, for site, there are additional requirements wherein they are required to conduct a risk assessment on how they are being affected by the COVID-19 situation. For example, if they are affected by the raw material supply, if their shipment was also affected by the pandemic, so those things. And then, of course, sites should also have a contingency plans for these issues that they identified during the risk assessment. And for CBs, for us at Control Union, we also conducted risk assessment interviews for this site that are based on the IAF MD3 2011. So this is actually to verify and ensure how the sites are being affected, what are their actions in the issues that they mentioned or identified. So those things. So, and also certification extensions for a maximum of 6 months were granted for the sites that have satisfactory results with the risk assessment interviews. And scheme owners also provided options on how to move forward or how to conduct the audit, which includes the full on-site audit, or if an on-site audit is not possible, a blended audit is allowed, which is composed of a remote audit plus an on-site audit. And if this is really not possible, we can go for a full remote audit. Yeah.
Okay, so I see quite some changes out there. So, like, as a certification body, like, how we react to that? And also, like, what about our certified how was they aware? How did we make sure that, like, they are aware of these changes?
Yeah. So as what Ella has mentioned earlier, um, technically there were no changes to the standard, like the clauses of the standard, with respect to the COVID itself. It was more of updating new revisions to the standard because of the normal cycle of review and revision of the standard owners to the standard itself, and the scheme owners somehow made some additional regulations or provisions to make sure the risks brought about by the pandemic to the food safety management system is still being addressed. So there was no stoppage actually of the verification. We've had the risk assessments, and the scheme owners provided blended remote or on-site or both options. So therefore, clients or the manufacturing sites will still have to be informed on this. It was really dynamic at the start. You know, almost every month or every two months, we've had changes to how the systems has to be implemented. And I would say Control Union also has beefed up its communication with the scheme owners through the program management. And the program management is also to provide information to each local office to make sure that these updates and revisions are supplied to our partners at the right time, because we don't want our clients also to be blindsided with what is happening with the standards itself. Yeah, so our communication line with our clients was always there. I would say we have been pretty good in doing that, even prior the pandemic. So during, I would say this is the new normal setup, right? We are really trying our best to serve our clients the most updated versions. We send them communication information through emails, or we call them personally. But despite all this, we are also making sure that how we serve our audits are also not being compromised. So even though we have good relationship and good communication activities with our clients, the way we perform audits is still with how the requirement of the standard is. So we really have to perform still the audits as how and what we are expected to do it.
Well, would you like to add something on this one?
Yeah, so as some of you might know, most of our auditors are residing in Davao City. So for clients who are located in Luzon, at the beginning we were having difficulty on how to plan the audits because of, flights are always being canceled, so those things. So what our auditors did was they dared to go to a long road travels and sea travels, from Davao City, just to cater all the audit schedules in our Luzon for our clients located in Luzon. So it was a tough job and it's tiring, of course. But during this time of pandemic, we really have to help each other and survive together. And, just to ensure that our clients will not have an expired certification during this period of COVID-19. So even though there are travel restrictions, we did our best job. We gave all our efforts to cater all these audits. Yeah, and that's why I personally think that having an effective communication with our clients and of course building a strong professional relationship with them is important. It's very important, especially during this time of COVID-19. Yeah.
Yeah. So since we have been able to exhaust at least for 2020. I am happy to note and inform everyone that for 2020, we haven't had a partner who had their certificates expired just because we weren't able to perform the audits within the time frame. So because, as earlier Ella mentioned, there was the risk assessment to provide concession for extension of the certificate validity, but that was just for 6 months. We all have to go back to the site still and ask them if they would want a remote or an on-site audit, and 100% of them wanted the on-site audit because it was also what their market requested or required. So it was really more of making sure the lines between the client and us are open and smooth.
Absolutely. I think like, it's a big achievement that no certificates been expired, and also as Ella and you also was mentioning earlier, like even though the pandemic was really affecting us as well, with the standard owners and the accreditation bodies, we sort of found alternative ways to keep the verification process going on and make sure the certificates are issued on time so that our clients can continue their business activities. So Ella, like, can you explain like what sort of certification programs that we offer in the provisions?
Yes, so as all of you know, food safety has become a major issue throughout the all food supply chain because of the increasing number of foodborne incidents. So that's why food safety should be considered across all the food supply chain, including the manufacturing, storage, and distribution, because all these functions are interrelated with each other. And of course, they are also connected with other sections, such as producers of equipment that we are using in our manufacturing, producers of packaging materials, ingredients, and also our service providers. So as a guideline for these sectors, a number of guidelines or standards were developed to help and monitor and ensure the food safety levels of all the food products that are being produced. And this also helped to improve the food safety and for certifying bodies to certify a company to give confidence to the consumers about the safety of the products that they are consuming almost every day. And yeah, so for starters, we can always offer the unaccredited program, which is GMP or the Good Manufacturing Practices. We also have ISO 22716, which also known as the GMP for cosmetics. We also offer unaccredited programs for HACCP and ISO 22000. We have vegan standard, and yeah, these are usually for sites who are just beginning with their certification, or for those whose market do not require them to have an accredited certificate, or if the company just want to have an external verification of the food safety system that they are currently implementing in their sites.
Right. And then, to add, so we've also had clients since Philippines is a major exporting country. And we also offer standard certification for those markets which require an accredited scope. So currently, we do HACCP, and this is suitable for small or new businesses, or even industries who has, or manufacturing businesses who has been there already implementing. It provides a strong basis or the platform for a higher management on a management system on food safety, like FSSC or the brcgs. And the objective of this standard is to assure that food products are produced safely, wherein they have to systematically define or identify hazards and put in place specific control measures for each identified hazards. And then we have ISO 22000-2018. So we are now doing the newest, the most updated version of ISO 22000. ISO 22000 has not been revised for quite a long time. And now, companies must adhere to the new requirements of the ISO 22000 version 2018, which is, I would say, there are major changes from the previous one. So ISO 22000 is a food safety management system standard, and it incorporates the principles of HACCP and the PRPs in order to identify and control food safety hazards. And it is built around the concept of PDCA, the Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle. Now, if a food manufacturing business would want the higher tier management certification, we offer FSSC and BRCGS. So for FSSC 22000, we are now on the version 5.1. So I think for less than a year, it has been 4.1 and then 5. And now, since April 1st, we are, the effective version is already the FSSC 22000 version 5.1, wherein there are some additional requirements to the FSSC standard itself. So FSSC 22000 is a FSMS certification which is based on the requirements of ISO 22000-2018 and the ISO TS 22002 sector-specific technical specification. So a food manufacturing or site that is involved in the food industry should be able to identify also what is the exact technical specification for the ISO TS is applicable to them, because we have a different one for food manufacturing. We also have a different one for those involved in the production of packaging materials, for example. And then, as I have mentioned, we have the additional scheme requirements of the FSSC. So under BRCGS, we have, in the Philippines, we can do 3 standards. We can do BRC food safety, issue 8. We can do storage and distribution, and we can do BRCGS for packaging materials. So let me just share that for the BRC food safety issue 8, we have a local auditor who can perform audits against raw fish products, fruit, vegetables, and nuts, prepared fruit, vegetables, and nuts, dairy, liquid, egg, and juice, cooked meat, fish products, low-high acid in can, glass or plastic packaging, beverage, bakery, dried food ingredients, oils and fats, because BRC has like 18 categories. So I'm happy to note to also our viewers that for most of the food items that is currently being exported by the Philippines, we have at least covered most of them. We have a local auditor. That's why we don't have issues, or we try to not have issues on expiring certificates. And then for the storage and distribution issue 6, we can do audits for ambient, frozen, chilled storage and material transfers, consumer products, and packaging materials. And for the BRCGS packaging issue 4, we are able to perform audits against products involving flexible plastics like the PE liners, and then we can also do rigid plastics like the plastic cups, for example. And we can do paper making and printing processes like the ones you see in the, for example, milk tea with the design. We can also do audits to make sure that those inks are not doing harm to the food that the packaging material is supposed to contain. And then for the FSSC, we can do all categories, for food, C1, C2, C3, and C4, and of course, packaging material. And then, so since, as I have mentioned earlier, most of the manufacturing sites in the Philippines are geared towards the export market, and some of them are producing for big retailer brands. So we do have also qualified auditors for these addendum modules. Like, for example, we have Costco. So it's a big supermarket in the US. And then if you are also exporting to the US, you will be required to get an assurance against the FISMA, the new Food Safety Modernization Act of the USFDA. And if you are producing niche markets for Asda, the Asda brand, you will be required to go unannounced audits against their standard, which most of our clients would go for together with the BRCGS food safety. So let me just explain a little bit on how we are supposed to implement step by step from the HACCP, from the PRPs to HACCP to the higher tier level of the standard or the management systems. So whenever we go for third-party certification, this is a provision by an independent body of a written assurance. So whether it's a certificate that your product, service, or system in question meets the specific requirement that you would want to be certificated against. And this would seek the expertise of an external organization to audit the company procedures against your preferred standard. So you viewers or your company must know what your market demand is. Some of our clients would go for both BRCGS and the FSSC, but if your market would accept one or one standard would fit all of your clients, then that would be the best way to do things. And the advantages of making sure that we have an ongoing certificate done by an accredited third-party CP is that we can always tender contracts from organizations specifying the certification. It's also an independent check of conformity of your procedure. Hopefully, it can motivate the staff, especially that the current standard requirements already have this clause requirement on food safety culture. So it is already part of the requirement of FSCC and the BRCGS for sites to implement a food safety culture program, and that is for the employees. And then eventually, when you have the certificate, we can provide confidence to our customers about the safety of our products. And if you are provided also a certificate, it should mean an effective FSMS. It also improves, of course, your company profile because a certification would set you above the rest. So how to set up the FSMS? For starters, we are always expected, if we are involved in a food manufacturing or at least handling food, that we implement good hygiene practices on site. Like for example, we need to clean. We need our workers to practice personal hygiene, take a bath every day, and use proper clothes. So these are examples of good hygiene practices. When we put them into procedures and instructions and keep records, we move to the good manufacturing practices. We set up a documentation and recording system. This is a very old joke about GMP, but it still plays its part of reminding, or not, I hope not, the negative side, that GMP means generating more papers. But actually, we have to produce documentation. If we don't have the documents and the records, we will have no evidence that we have implemented the food hygiene in place. And then once we have set up our GMP, in each of our process of producing a product, we identify the hazards or the risks, and we perform a risk assessment so that we will be able to implement controls against these hazards. And most of the controls for the identified hazards would also fall under the existing PRPs or your GMPs. And then the highest part would involve already implementation of a quality management system. And then overall, that's your food safety management system. So examples of the PRPs that you would need to develop, put into procedure, put into instructions. These are just example. It would involve, for example, processes or written procedures for primary production. You have to define your requirements, how you establish your facility, the design, the flow. Is it logical? Do you avoid cross-contamination between products and processes? You need to set documented controls of operations, process control, product controls. You need to establish procedures for maintenance, the program, the plan. You need to establish your site protocols for personal hygiene, transportation if you have your own vehicles, or if you do rent where transportation between or material transfer between one area to another is part of your operation. You need to have or identify your product. So you need to set your product information, and then of course, competence of the personnel, training. You need to set procedures for training. And we need to perform, as I have mentioned, risk assessments. I think the viewers, it would be important for the viewers to know that most of the higher tiers management system standards, the requirements even for PRPs would require, I would say, require risk assessments. So even if it's just the cleaning program, requirements for risk assessment on how you define the frequency and the method of cleaning, that some food safety management system standards require a risk assessment for that. Internal audits. You need to, there are standards also wherein to qualify the frequency of your internal audits, you will need to perform a risk assessment, because the idea is not all departments has the same risk level in terms of food safety. Purchasing might have a different level of risk to, for example, warehousing or the production operations, and this would have to be verified annually in different times and different frequencies. One department may require more frequency than the other. So yeah, perform risk assessment, identify the risk, assess the risk level, you implement the controls, you act on the controls, you review, and you identify the risk again. So it's a cycle of reviewing, acting, planning. And in a nutshell, I would say the very, very core of the FSMS is really management commitment. It is where all of this implementation starts. The management should be the one who will be establishing policies, strategies, objectives of the company to include food safety, and of course, set up performance indicators where each process owner will be assessed against. And once the commitment of the management is there, they would be able also to provide the right resources to include competent personnel trained with or trained whether by educational background or through training. You need to set up a good infrastructure and a good work environment for the workers as well. They need to use the right equipment for the products or the process. And of course, this involves finance. And a major bulk of the implementation, as I have mentioned earlier, would be the procedures, the working instructions, and the records.
Okay. So I think it's very obvious that Tanzania is providing a wide variety of certification marks, related certification marks. And most importantly, I think, as you said, like these programs cover like all major commodities in Philippines. So, Ella, what if a new starting company, like they want to get certified? So, how can we assist them? How can we support them to implementing these tasks, as well as like just to understand what is the correct certification program for them? So how can we support them?
Actually, Control Union Academy. Control Union Academy is a good learning platform for a wide array of industry clients for training. So it can offer customized service, whether the company wants to have a full training with the standards, for example, a full training on FSSC 22000 or brcgs. We can always offer these trainings. We can also offer ISO 9001 if they want to be certified for ISO 9001. And if the company is starting with their HACCP team, we can also support them by providing training on how they can qualify HACCP team or internal auditors. And we also have a sister company, which is Peterson Consultancy. So under Peterson, we can also offer pre-assessment activities. So this pre-assessment activity is an audit-like. However, the only difference is there will be no certificate granted for the company. So I think having a pre-assessment is also a good activity for starters because they will have an overview of the areas which they need further improvement on before going into the actual certification audits. And also under Peterson, we can also do internal audits for companies. Yeah. So clients can always reach out to us and talk to us on what they would like for us to offer them. And then together we can work on how we can do this for them.
Yeah. And to add to that services, we also have a local processing laboratory here, wherein the analysis will be performed by Peterson's TLR in Rotterdam. And we are able to do testing for chemical and microbiological analysis, pesticide screening, glyphosate and paraquat testing, and non-GMO. But these are just a few of the examples. They may also reach out to us through our local officer here, Ms. Sarah Silva. And they would be glad to present to you the wide range of product testing and plant testing that the laboratory can perform. And we also have our services for inspection. So we have an inspector available locally, Mr. John Obias. And we are able to cater to commodity inspection, volumetric inspection, quality, product quality inspection, and they can also reach out to the local office in Davao.
Yeah, I think this is why we call Control as a one-stop shop. So within one group, you can get all these certification services and going beyond, like I said, the laboratories and also commodity inspection services are also under the service portfolio of Control Philippines.
Yeah, and I would like to add, Sunera, that very recently we have been qualified to perform audits also for McDonald's. So whoever is supplying products, raw materials for McDonald's in the Philippines, we can perform the SQMS audits already for them. It can be like bread for McDonald's or the patties.
So Ella, I would like to ask from you, if someone is interested in getting certified, so what should be the approach? What should be the initial step? Can you please explain the tracking process?
Yes, Sonera. So, like I said, prospect clients can always reach out to us via emails or phone calls, or they can reach out to us through our website. So our assistant certifier, Mr. Genesis Donato, who is also joining our live today, he will be assisting you with the contracting phase. So the first thing we do is we give out application form for the specific program that the client wishes to be certified with. And then after we receive this application form with all the details, our local office or our certification assistant will initially review this, and we will forward this to our certifier. So our certifier will further review the application, and they will also be the one to approve this. And then after approval from our certifier, only then we can send an offer to you, or as some of you may call it, a quotation. Yeah, so if clients decided to continue or pursue their certification with Control Union, we are requesting for a copy of the signed offer letter that we sent to them, and this will serve as the contract between the company and Control Union Philippines. And then we will also be giving you a confirmation of registration. So this is formalizing the the uh, uh, the registration of the company to Control Union. And then our finance team will be the one to send you the invoices, and after we receive a confirmation from our finance team about the status of the payment, we can always plan the audit on how you want to do it. For example, if you want a remote audit, or if you want to have a full on-site audit, then we can do it also. Or if you want a blended audit, we can talk about this during our audit planning.
Okay, so do they have to provide any other information or any other supporting documents as well?
Yes, we are also requesting supporting documents during this contracting phase. So for example of these supporting documents will include business registrations. We are also requesting for copies of the list of the products that the company would like to certify, or if they have an excluded products, this should also reflect on the application. We are also requesting a copy of the summary of CCPs or the HACCP plan. If they have risk zones, we are also requesting a zoning layout, or how many risk zones do they have. And for clients who are previously certified from a different certifying body, we are also requesting a copy of their current certificate. Yeah. So the purpose of these supporting documents, or the importance of this, is actually this is also a requirement of the scheme owners, because this information should be considered during the application review. So one importance of this is for us, Control Union or the certifying body, to have an overview of what the company is, what are the operations of the company, and of course to verify important information, because some of this information will have an effect on the calculation of the audit days. So for example of this is the number of your HACCP plan, the number of your employees, the size of the facility, and the number of the risk zones. So this have an impact on the number of audit days. And like Ms. Loy mentioned before, we have different product categories. For FSSC 22000, we have 4. And for BRCGS food, we have 18 food categories. So during this application, we also need to properly identify what is the correct or proper product category for your products, and we need to know the key processes that you are performing in your site. And this will also enable us to properly plan if we have a qualified local auditor, or if we are going to need to request assistance from our foreign CU offices. And for previously certified companies from a different CB, we might also need to have a pre-transfer review before we can send you an offer. So yeah, and then we just want to make sure also that all these supporting documents that you will be submitting to us will be treated with confidentiality, of course. So our assistant certifier, our certifier who will approve the application, and the auditor who is assigned for you will be the only one who will have access to this information.
So I would understand that especially for first timers who are applying, let me emphasize that these supporting documents are not the CB's requirements only. So we did not set the set of supporting documents that has to be submitted. These are actually requirements of the standard owners also. So whenever we do accreditation audits or review from the standard owners, they will be checking how we did the planning, how we were able to identify that this site has the right product category or processes, if there are no exclusions involved. So please bear with us when our contracting team are requesting these documents, and some of them might require more detail. And please, we would like to ensure all of you that these are treated with full confidentiality. No one is able to see these documents except the contracting team and the auditor itself, plus the owner of the standard or the accreditation body whenever we are undergoing also our accreditation audits.
Okay. So the comment section of our Facebook Live session is actually flooding in with a lot of comments and questions. So I think shall we move a couple of questions?
Yes, we will try to
Yeah,
answer.
we try our best to
Yeah,
answer.
we will try to answer. I would like to also mention this, that when it's a food safety management system, for me, it's never a template. We have this set of requirements or clauses that the site has to make procedures for their own operations, but it is never a template. You have to custom fit the procedures and the documents for your site that would serve best the type of product and the type of processes that you undergo. So we will try our best to answer if there are very technical ones,
Yes.
but they can always reach out if it's more specific.
Just one question, like in the Food Safety Act, safety compliance officer is very vital in any audit. How do you go on making sure that all clients are providing such legal requirements? Safety compliance officer.
Food Safety Act?
Yes, in the Food Safety Act, Food Safety Compliance Officer is a very vital in any audit. How do you go on making sure that all clients are providing such legal requirements?
All right. So when we go for audits, usually this food safety compliance officer, they usually are part of the HACCP team. So we just check the appointments and if they have undergone the necessary accreditation required or compliance required. And then we check if there's one who has been approved.
Okay. And also there's another question that local government units are the ones in the forefront of food safety with their sanitary mission. How does the government make LGUs work with you? I will repeat it.
Okay.
Local government units are the ones in the forefront of food safety with their sanitary mission.
Understand.
Yeah. How does the government make LGUs work with you?
All right. So we are a service provider. So we are an auditing company, and whenever we go to on-site audits, we check the site's operation against the standard, but the minimum requirement is always the legal regulation of the land. So we do the checks. It would be hard for us to work with the LGUs because we are a service provider. And I understand maybe the person who sent this question where he's coming from, because some sites actually has limitations on the availability of potable water, the availability of legal sanitary landfills. But when we go to the site, we always request for the evidence. So the due diligence is actually on the site. We request it from them, and we do not go via the local government units.
Okay. A lot of people joining in from Makati, Bukitno, Pampanga, Laguna, Yeah, a lot of comments coming in, but I don't see any other questions right now. Yeah, from various different parts of the countries, and throughout City, Quezon, in Tawago. Yes, it seems you don't have immediate questions, but as I said, Lloyd, even if you have questions later, I think what we were discussing today, you always can reach us. I think in the screen you can see our contact details, and you can email us, and also you can visit our website, and also you can reach our social media pages, and also you can direct any of your concerns related to this one or any other certification program. So if there are no more questions,
No more questions.
Yeah, I think we can. Yeah. 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 So if we have no more questions, I think we can conclude the.
Or you can maybe check some more.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have any concerns, you can make it a comment right now so that we can immediately attend that.
Okay, we have a question from, what's the question?
From Rolando Malasigan. Good morning. Question. With respect to certification of food packaging material,
Yes.
does this apply only to the manufacturer of the food packaging materials itself? Example, yogurt cups or plastic sachet, or does it apply also to the supplier of the plastic?
The resins?
Yeah, receipts.
The resins, yes. It can apply to both. It can apply to both. But most of our clients in the Philippines are already the formed ones. So it has to be the formed packaging material already.
Okay, I have another one. You have one?
One more.
Another question. Are the list of requirements or documents for FSSC, brcgs certification readily available online?
The standard for FSSC and brcgs, the whole standard, it is available. It is free. What you need to purchase from the standard owners are the implementation guides. So as this is what I do as an auditor, for me to know which ones requires documented information or procedure, I just look in the standard. If it says documented, shall be documented, must be documented, documented information, recorded procedure, we will expect a document like a real document for that one. So there's no list on what you need to prepare, like number one by one. There's no list, but you need to go through the standards and highlight which one says documented information, which one says procedure, which one says instruction, and then you will have the idea what PRPs or other procedures are required.
Yeah. Oh. Can I just add?
Yep.
Yeah, actually, for ISO standards, which is part of the requirement of FSSC 22000, if I'm not mistaken, this should be purchased for the ISO 22000 and the ISO technical specification sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's the ISO, if it's
Yeah.
the ISO 22000, the ISO series and the technical specs, yeah, they need to purchase this online.
Yeah, and
Thank you, Elle.
Yeah, I don't think we have questions immediately. So
No more.
come on. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So right, since we don't have any further questions at the moment, we are going to close our session for today. But you always can reach us, as I said earlier. You can reach us. We can listed in the screen right now. So we believe like this has been a very good session for all our renowned Facebook followers as well as the other participants. And as a closing remark, I selected this phrase about quality, which says that quality is never an accident. It's always the result of high intention, sincere effort, intelligent direction, and skillful execution. It represents the wise choice of many alternatives. So, Control Union, as your trusted certification partner, is looking forward to assist you in guaranteeing this quality. So, let's meet in another similar public forum. So, until then, have a nice day and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.